This happened a few weeks ago. I was on an expedition aboard the Ocean Explorer. I've been a marine biologist for over 10 years, but this trip felt different. We were diving deeper than anyone had before, 4 miles underwater in the Pacific. The chance to discover new life excited me, but it also scared me. As we prepared for our first dive, I overheard some crew members talking about strange noises. They said they detected things that didn't make sense down there. I found it hard to believe, but unease crept in as I examined the data. The readings showed patterns of deep vibrations. I thought they were glitches, maybe things I was imagining. Yet the more I learned, the less comfortable I felt. I stood near the edge of the submersible before we began our descent. My stomach twisted, but everyone was excited, ready to go. We dropped into the dark water, and the world above quickly vanished. The lights illuminated odd shapes around us, colors flickered, and my curiosity grew again. But those strange noises continued, pulsing louder now. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. As we dove deeper, shadows shifted menacingly outside the sub. One of the crew murmured about seeing strange figures on the screens. I thought I must have misheard. I wanted to dismiss it as pressure and fatigue, but the very thought made me shiver. On our third dive, panic set in when one crew member vanished during a check. We searched everywhere, but he was gone. Tension rose among us, voices quivering with fear. What if the reports about hostile creatures were true, or was it just a nightmare made real? The next day, I looked into the feed just in time to spot a shadow darting across the screen. My heart raced. I felt cold sweat trickle down my back. I blinked, and it disappeared. I turned to the pilot. He looked pale, either from exhaustion or something worse. As the days dragged on, people kept disappearing. Each loss deepened the mystery. Were those shadows lurking out there real? I wasn't sure anymore. I didn't want to go back down, but we had to. The civilization we had come to explore seemed to pull at us, waiting. Then one night, I heard my name whispered from the depths. It echoed back to me, soft but chilling. I spun around. There was nobody there. The darkness made it feel real and alive. My hands clenched into fists. What was happening? I was getting desperate for answers, but the thought of the ocean claiming me too was terrifying. As we approached our next dive, dread flooded my veins. I didn't want to go deeper. I didn't want to face whatever watched us from those black waters, but I felt like I had no choice. The ocean was alive, waiting for us. What I didn't know was just how deep the mystery went. The next day brought a sense of urgency that I couldn't shake off. We needed to find the remaining crew members and get answers about the odd occurrences. I couldn't believe how many had vanished. It couldn't just be coincidence. Each disappearance tied back to darker feelings that slithered into my thoughts. As we gathered for the briefing, the air crackled with tension. The captain, once a stalwart leader, now looked worn and frazzled. He explained how we were planning another descent to investigate a thermal vent. He believed it might reveal more about our surroundings. I wasn't so sure if this was the best idea, but we couldn't just sit back anymore. During the plunge, my heart raced. The usual excitement was overshadowed by dread. Before long, we were hovering above the vent, darkness swirling below us. A rumble echoed. It felt alive. Then the screens flickered, and a strange form captured my attention. That's when I saw it. A shifting silhouette emerged from the darkness, unlike anything I had seen. It was massive, elongated, and glided through the water with an unsettling grace. I gasped, trying to alert the others. "Look!" I exclaimed, but the words felt trapped in my throat. It felt like it was aware of us, observing through the glass. The pilot turned to me, eyes wide. "What are you seeing?" he asked, his voice trembling. Then the figure darted closer. I could see spiny ridges along its body, and its mouth, a gaping maw. I shouldn't have been surprised when one of the crew members screamed. Panic flooded the cabin. "I'm not going down there," shouted Margot, the biologist sitting next to me. "This is insane." Suddenly, the entire sub rattled. The lights flickered as the creature lunged at us, forcing me to grasp onto the console. I was frozen in fear. Part of me wanted to dive deeper, to understand what I was seeing, but another screamed for me to get out. Then the screen went dark. Everything was silent, a stillness hovering in the thick water. My heart thundered. Had it gotten us? I flipped switches frantically, but nothing happened.
My hands were clammy, and I fought back the growing panic. Moments later, the lights blinked back to life. The creature was gone, but the eerie vibration still pulsated through the hall. I wanted to believe it was just a figment of my imagination or fatigue playing tricks, but the trembling of the sub told me otherwise. As we slowly regained our bearings, a faint whisper filled the cabin. This time, it wasn't just me. The others reacted too, their faces ashen. "Did you hear that?" one of them asked, barely above a whisper. My skin crawled. I peered into the dark expanse outside. What were we really facing? We needed clarity, but I had a sinking feeling that whatever was down there was growing more thrumming with each passing hour. As we began our ascent, my mind raced with possibilities. Was the civilization we saw merely a distraction from the real danger? What had we awakened? And more importantly, would we survive to unravel the mystery? The ascent felt torturous. Time stretched as we rose, bubbles swirling around us. I couldn't shake off the image of that creature.
My eyes flitted around the cabin, searching for any sign of my crewmates' reactions. It was clear. The tension gripped us all. Finally, the sub surfaced, breaking through the water's surface with a sudden jolt. I was met with the harsh, blinding lights of the ship. The crew erupted, their relieved shouts echoing in the small space. But I couldn't join their enthusiasm. My mind was still submerged in thoughts of the entity we had encountered. "Everyone okay?" the captain asked, moving around the cabin, checking faces. I nodded, but I could tell others weren't as fortunate. Margot's hands trembled as she sat, and Mike, the engineer, looked like he'd seen a ghost. "We should analyze the data," I said. My voice was stronger than I felt. "The creature might be linked to the disappearances." The captain frowned. "We need to get the rest of the crew first. We can't afford to lose anyone else." I understood his reasoning, but we were running out of time. "What if it's still out there? We must return to find answers," I urged. Before he could respond, the intercom crackled. We all jumped. "Team, report to the control room immediately," came a voice I didn't recognize. It was urgent, laced with dread. Panic settled deep in my stomach as we filed out of the sub. What now? I didn't want to face more uncertainty. At the control center, a flickering screen displayed an image that sent shivers down my spine. There was a map of the ocean floor, but it was marked with several red dots, locations where the crew had vanished. "It seems," the voice continued, "that the coordinates of the thermal vent align with the disappearances." "What does that mean?" Margot whispered, her face pale. "It means there may be a connection between the creature we encountered and the crew," the voice said. Something clicked inside me. My heart raced anew. If the creature was protecting something, or someone, what danger lay ahead? Before I could process this, a crash echoed from the bowels of the ship. Alarms blared. "What was that?" Mike shouted, fear etched on his face. The captain quickly rounded up the crew. "Check your stations," he barked. "Stay alert." Adrenaline surged. I grabbed a flashlight and made my way toward the noise. As I pushed through the narrow corridors, every echo amplified my anxiety. My skin prickled with every steel creak. I reached the source, a storage area. I swung the flashlight around, illuminating the cramped space. Boxes were strewn everywhere, and then something caught my eye. In the shadows, a flurry of movement. My heart skipped as a figure darted past. "Who's there?" I called out, voice steadier than I felt. Silence answered. I took a cautious step forward. That's when I saw it, something gleaming in the corner, half buried beneath a fallen crate. A necklace. It was laced with intricate carvings resembling the creature we'd seen. My breath got in my throat. If this belonged to someone from our crew, it only deepened our predicament.
Suddenly, darkness blanketed the room. The lights flickered out, leaving just the beam of my flashlight. The whispers returned, swirling around me, taunting. I gripped the necklace tighter. Was it a warning or a clue? Before I could process this, a low growl reverberated from the shadows. I stumbled backward, heart pounding furiously. Something was coming for me. I turned to run, but the silence that followed felt wrong. I wasn't alone. The urgent need to escape tightened in my chest as I heard footsteps echoing behind me. What had I just uncovered? I needed to find the others before it was too late. I bolted down the corridor, my mind racing faster than my feet. The darkness pressed against me thick and suffocating. Each step reverberated in my ears, drowning out the growling that lurked behind me. I made a sharp turn, desperate to distance myself from whatever hunted me. My flashlight flickered, and I cursed under my breath. I couldn't afford to lose its beam. I pushed onward, weaving around corners, my heart pounding in rhythm with my hurried breaths. Every corner felt like an opportunity for something to pounce. Just as I reached the control room, the door swung open. The captain stood there, a wild look in his eyes. "What happened?" he demanded. "Something's down there," I gasped, breathless. "I found a necklace. It looks like the creature's, and I heard something." The crew closed in, an anxious energy crackling in the air. "A growl, like it was stalking me," I added, glancing back over my shoulder. Margot's face paled even further. "This can't be happening. We need to get out of here." "We're not leaving until we know what's really happening," the captain said firmly, glaring down the hall as if daring whatever was there to come out. I felt a chill creep through me. The whispers seemed to multiply in the confined space. If the creature was protecting something, or if it knew we were getting closer to the truth, it could change everything. Then, from behind the captain, an unnerving sound echoed down the corridor, metal scraping against metal, followed by a deep exhale. Everyone froze, eyes wide, breathing shallow. "No," the captain shouted, voice rising. "Get to your stations. Prepare for an emergency dive. Now!" Panic surged through me as we shuffled toward our tasks. The ship began to vibrate slightly, a low hum resonating through the metal hull. I glanced at the screen again. The map still glowed red. Each dot reminded me of a life lost, a mystery unsolved. "Wait," I said, noticing something new on the display. One red dot flickered, almost pulsing. "That one, it wasn't there before." "What are you talking about?" Mike asked, fingers flying over his console. "Look," I pointed to the flickering dot. "It's moving." All eyes shifted to the screen as the dot slowly shifted on the map. The realization hit me hard. Was it whatever had been chasing me, or was it something else entirely? "Captain, it's heading toward us."
Immediate silence fell. Fear washed over every crew member as we stared at the screen, our heartbeats sinking with the pulsing light. Suddenly, the ship rattled violently as if caught in a vice. Systems blared and alarms blared warnings. The lights flickered on and off, and I struggled to maintain my grip on the desk. "We have to get out of here," Margot yelled, desperation lacing her words. "Set a course to escape now," the captain shouted back, jaw clenched. But the ship was no longer responding. Something was interfering. I felt it deep in my gut. The threat from below was becoming real, and I was afraid we might have tapped into something we weren't ready to face. As the flickering red dot grew larger on the map, I knew the danger was more than just a creature. We had stumbled onto something we couldn't control, something ancient, something alive, and it was coming for us. The alarm screamed in our ears, and the ship trembled beneath us. I tried to stay focused, but fear clawed at my mind like the shadow that lurked beyond the door. My eyes darted between the flickering displays and the crew's panic-stricken faces. We were trapped. "Get the power back up," shouted Mike, frantic as he slammed his fists on his console. "We can't stay here." The captain turned to the controls, hands trembling. "We have to restore navigation. If we can't get out of here, we need to at least prepare for whatever's coming." I swallowed hard. Whatever was down there, it was more than just a creature. The way the dot moved, purposeful and methodical, it felt sentient. I felt its gaze through the screen, creeping under my skin. Suddenly, with a gut-wrenching lurch, everything went dark. All lights off, screens blank. My heart dropped as I strained to listen, drowning in the oppressive silence. Did it find us? "Captain," I whispered, barely above a breath. "What's happening?" When he didn't answer, I reached for the emergency flashlight strapped to my belt. I flipped it on, the weak beam slicing through the dark. In that narrow beam, I saw Margot, her expression frozen in dread. Mike fumbled for his own light. "Anyone got a plan?" he asked, voice shaking through the silence. "Stay calm," the captain finally managed to say, though his voice wavered. "We need to be strategic. We're a crew. We work together." But working together felt out of reach as the ship bucked again, metal groaning like a wounded beast. I gripped the edge of the console for balance. My thoughts raced. What could we possibly do? Then I heard it. Soft and low at first, a whisper, so faint I almost dismissed it. But it grew louder, a deep, thrumming chant resonating through the hull. It felt alive, echoing from below like a voice I didn't want to hear. "What is that?" Margot breathed, wide-eyed. "I don't know, but it doesn't sound friendly," I replied, trembling in response to the growing apprehension. Before anyone could react, the ship trembled again, and with a jolt, the lights flickered back to life. But the relief was short-lived. The red dot on the screen blared with urgency, pulsing like a heartbeat that belonged to something far beyond our comprehension. "Look!" I shouted, pointing at my monitor. The dot was moving faster, closing the gap. "We need to—" The sudden crash of something heavy rattled the control room, and the captain shot to his feet. "To the lower decks. We need to find out what that is." "No! We should go up!" Margot's voice cracked with fear. "That's where the escape pods are." But we didn't have time to debate.
The vibrations intensified, rocking us violently as if a storm brewed beneath the ocean's depths. I scrambled to keep my footing. We can't let it catch us! To my horror, I could see that the dot was now just a few meters away. Something had breached our hull. "Get ready!" the captain yelled. That's when I saw it. A shadow moving just outside the control room door, long and serpentine. I froze, mind racing. It had found us. Panic surged through me as I clutched my flashlight, ready to face whatever emerged. But the darkness roared to life with that same deep chant, louder and more commanding than my thoughts. And then everything went black again, illuminating nothing but empty space. "Captain," I whispered hoarsely, but no reply came. The silence was oppressive, wrapping around me like a noose. Suddenly, an earth-shattering crash echoed down the hallway. The sound was followed by a screech that sent chills down my spine, the unmistakable sound of metal being shredded. "Margot! Mike!" I shouted, my voice barely above a tremor. I had to move, had to find them, but I hesitated, fear rooting me to the spot. What if whatever was out there was already hunting us? I took a steadying breath and turned the flashlight toward the door. My heart thudded violently in my chest as I peeked outside the control room. The corridor was quiet now, too quiet, except for the faint thrum that reverberated through the walls. It was relentless, as if the ship itself was in pain. I stepped into the hallway, each footfall heavy and dread-filled. The air felt thick, charged with something I couldn't understand. I wanted to scream for my crew, but the memory of that serpent-like shadow stifled my voice. "Margot!" I called again, a little louder this time. "Mike!" No answer. Only that eerie hum continued to swirl around me, echoing like a chant from a forgotten time. As I moved deeper into the corridor, I spotted a flickering light at the far end. It pulsed rhythmically, drawing me in against my better judgment. With every step, the thrum grew louder. As I approached the light, I realized it was coming from the emergency panel. Had it activated by itself?
The screen blinked erratically, each flash displaying warnings. Water levels rising, hull integrity compromised. Damn it, I cursed under my breath. We were sinking, but into what? A sudden crash behind me jerked me around. My flashlight beam swung wildly, revealing nothing but the dark. My pulse raced. Whatever it was had soundlessly moved, lurking just out of sight. I turned back to the panel, desperately trying to decipher the blinking icons. Just then, I heard something. A low, guttural growl rising from the depths. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just fear anymore. Something was hunting us. Feeling the urgency, I took a fast breath and bolted toward the staircase that led to the lower deck. I had to find the others. There was safety in numbers, and perhaps we could find a way to fight whatever was out there. But as I reached the doorway, I froze again. The hallway just beyond was no longer empty. Shadows danced along the walls as if they were living things, and the growl morphed into a series of harsh whispers that slithered into my ears. I felt a presence behind me, heavy and ominous. My instinct screamed to run, but I couldn't move. That's when I saw it, a figure in the darkness, its shape flickering like the failing lights. It was huge, towering, and something in its eyes glinted with a promise of terror. I stumbled back, heart racing, trapped between the panel and whatever was hunting me. The only choice left was to confront the unknown lurking in the shadows. But before I could make a move, a sharp, echoing roar shattered the air, ready to consume me whole. I bolted down the corridor, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. The roar still reverberated in my ears, and my flashlight danced across the walls, illuminating flickers of movement that vanished into the dark. I had no idea what that creature was, but I couldn't stay here. "Margot! Mike!" I yelled again, my voice breaking under the weight of desperation. I sprinted toward the stairs leading to the lower deck, praying I'd find my crew. We needed to regroup. If we could just make it to the cargo bay, we might find something useful. As I reached the first step, I froze again. A strange shimmer caught my eye. Slowly, I turned, my beam of light tilting back to the corridor. A mass of darkness shifted, coalescing into a form I could hardly comprehend. It was large, too large. Multiple limbs extended unnaturally, gleaming with an oily sheen. It seemed to twitch, suspended in a slithering, rhythmic motion. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its predatory gaze boring into me. Panic surged again. I took a single step backward, but that was enough. The creature lunged, and instinct kicked in. I turned on my heel and ran, my breath pounding in my chest. The air was thick and heady, stinging my lungs as I raced toward the staircase, each step echoing like a drumbeat of doom. My flashlight flickered wildly as I descended the stairs 2 at a time.
I barely registered the warning signs flashing on the emergency panel again as I passed. It felt like a lifetime ago that I'd been staring at them. I pushed onward, the thrum of the ship growing louder with each descent. Suddenly, I stumbled into the dimly lit corridor on the lower deck. My light illuminated unfamiliar objects strewn about, supply crates, tools, and a broken computer station. I took a moment to catch my breath, but the moment felt wrong. The air here was colder, almost sending a chill down my spine. "Mike! Margot!" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt, but only silence answered. Then a noise broke through, the sound of hurried footsteps. I spun around, flashlight aimed at the corridor's end. A shape loomed closer, but it wasn't the creature. It was Margot, her face pale and eyes wide. "Thank God," I gasped, relief flooding through me. I thought I was alone. Before I could finish, she grabbed my arm, fear etched deep into her expression. "We need to go. It's not just one thing. There are more of them." Before I could respond, I heard it, a chorus of growls echoing through the ship, fill the air with a chorus built on dread. Something moved in the shadows behind her, and if we didn't leave now, we might never get the chance. We turned to run together, but when we reached the stairwell, the growling intensified, drowning out everything else. It felt like they were closing in on us, an unseen horde determined to take us down. With nowhere else to go, we pressed forward. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever this was, it was becoming more aware of us, and that thought made my skin crawl. They weren't just beasts, they had a plan. As we sprinted into the next corridor, I caught sight of something glinting on the floor. A flash of metal. My heart skipped, a potential lifeline in this nightmare. That's when I realized it was a piece of uniform. My uniform. I reached for it, but the moment I touched it, a new roar shook the ship. This one was joined by others, a multitude of voices that echoed our fear. Everything around us began to tremble. We had to keep moving, but now the urgency felt sharper, electric. What if we didn't make it out? What if we were already too late? In a rush, we turned toward the only route left ahead. There were no more cries for help, just the unyielding chase echoing behind us. Something was coming, faster than I could fathom, and as the shadows closed in, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real terror was just beginning. I darted down the corridor, Margot right beside me. The growls were getting louder, melting together into a terrifying symphony. We had to find a way out, but every instinct screamed that we were in more danger than I'd ever imagined. "Over here," I urged, spotting a door slightly ajar on our right. We ducked inside a small storage room, desperately trying to muffle our breathing.
The metal door creaked as I pushed it closed, the sound heightened in the tense silence. I held my breath, listening intently. The growls were closer now. Whatever hunted us was relentless, sniffing its prey. I peered through the small window in the door, shining my flashlight down the dim corridor. Shadows danced and twisted, multiple silhouettes moving in a chaotic rhythm, more than I could count. "What the hell is that?" Margot whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't have an answer. The earlier terror morphed into cold dread. I turned, searching the room for anything we could use as a weapon, but it was mostly empty, save for a few dusty crates. As the shadows moved toward us, I caught something shining in the light, a flare gun, half buried under a stack of old rope and nets. I grabbed it, a flicker of hope igniting within me. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. "We can use this," I said, holding it up for Margot to see. Her eyes widened, and she nodded, though doubt still lingered in her expression. Suddenly, the door rattled violently. I jumped back, heart hammering. The creature had found us. "It's going to break through," Margot screamed, her fear ripping through the stillness. I pressed the flare gun against my chest, gradually losing the confidence I had just gained. With a deafening crack, the door burst open. The creature lunged at us, its elongated limbs stretching impossibly, mimicking an unholy spider. Dark, glistening eyes were fixed on us, hungry and intelligent. I fired the flare, the bright flame illuminating the nightmare in front of me. The shot rang out like thunder, and the creature recoiled, its screech piercing through the air. I could see a glimpse of its gnarled form, covered in matted fur and slithering tentacles, shifting like an open wound. It backed away, but more growls echoed behind it, and I realized we weren't alone. "We have to go now," I urged, grabbing Margot's hand. We crashed through the storage room's threshold and sprinted the opposite way. The flare fizzled out behind us, but the monstrous forms were persistent, lunging forward through the shadows. As we raced down the corridor, the layout of the ship became a blur, the emergency lights casting a sickly glow all around. We skipped past closed doors and inaccessible passages, searching for a safe haven. "Is it just me, or are they getting smarter?" Margot panted, fear coursing through her voice. I couldn't answer. The urgency of our situation left no room for uncertainty. We needed to find somewhere to hide or a way to defend ourselves. Then I spotted a sign on the wall,
"Cargo bay," it read, and with a jolt of realization, I pulled Margot towards it. If we could reach the cargo bay, there had to be something that could help us, maybe even an escape route. But before we reached the end of the corridor, the growls shifted. A new sound joined them, something deeper, filled with malice. I froze, terror creeping along my spine. What now?
"Margot?" asked, eyes wide with disbelief. That's when I saw it. A shadow lurking at the far end of the corridor, a figure more massive than the others. Whatever it wasn't just another creature. It was a leader, and it was watching us. Suddenly, everything went dark. The emergency lights failed, plunging us into an inky blackness that suffocated all hope. The growls enveloped us, echoing closer. "Run!" I shouted, but this time I couldn't tell where we were going. The ship had become a maze of horrors closing in around us. I stumbled forward, dragging Margot with me. The darkness swallowed us whole, the growls like a pack of wolves trailing just behind. Panic tightened my chest. I called out, "Where's the cargo bay?" "I don't know," Margot gasped, her voice a mix of fear and frustration. We pressed on, my heart racing as I felt the walls close in. Just ahead, the sudden thud of something colliding with the ground sent a jolt through my body. I turned to Margot. "Did you hear that?" "What was it?" she asked, her voice shrill. I could see the glimmer of tears in her eyes. "Just keep moving," I urged, forcing us to maintain a steady pace. I tried to picture the layout of the ship in my mind, but the dark corridor warped it all. There was a faint flicker ahead. Without thinking, I rushed toward it, hoping it would lead us somewhere safe. As we drew closer, the light revealed a small hatch on the wall. It was partially open, a dull light spilling out into the corridor. "Can we fit through there?" Margot asked, glancing anxiously back. The growls were growing closer, mixing with the sound of something heavy dragging along the floor. I nodded, gripping the edge of the hatch. "We have to try." I squeezed in first, forcing myself through the narrow space. The dim room was cramped and filled with old cargo, rusted tools and crates stacked high. I turned back for Margot. "Come on." She edged in, and we quickly shut the hatch behind us. The growls faded, but didn't disappear entirely. In the uneasy silence that followed, I could feel adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What now?" Margot whispered, frantically looking around. I spotted a faint glow coming from a crack between two crates. Cautiously, I moved towards it, pulling them apart. There, in the shadows, I revealed an emergency lantern, barely lit, but enough to chase away some darkness. "That's something," I said, feeling a spark of hope. Margot knelt to check the contents of one of the crates. "These are supplies. Look!" She pulled out a couple of knives, their edges gleaming in the lantern's faint light. "We can defend ourselves," I said, a bit of my confidence returning. But the gnawing feeling in my gut wouldn't let me rest easy. What if they found us here? As if the universe sensed my doubt, a loud crash echoed from outside the cargo room. I froze, listening intently.
The growls escalated, now mixed with snarls as something massive slammed against the hatch we just escaped through. "They found us," I whispered, dread washing over me. "We need to move." Just then, I noticed something in the corner of my eye, an open door hidden behind the crates. I turned, my breath hitching in my throat. "This way." We darted toward the door, but before we could reach it, the other crate shifted ominously. The growls grew louder, sharper. Whatever hunted us was relentless, no longer far behind. As we slipped through the door, I caught a glimpse of what had been pursuing us, a shadow bursting through the opening we just left. It was closer than I dared to imagine. "We can't stop now," I yelled, pushing Margot ahead. We plunged into the next corridor, uncertainty tightening its grip around us once more. The only thing clear was that we were running out of time. We dashed down the narrow corridor, hearts pounding as the muffled growls echoed ominously behind us. Margot clutched a knife tightly, her knuckles white as we raced toward the faint glow of the emergency lighting ahead. Suddenly, the low growl intensified, sending a surge of adrenaline through both of us. Whatever hunted us was relentless. "Where do we go?" Margot gasped, glancing around wildly. The walls closed in, shadows creeping ominously along the corridor. "Anywhere but here," I replied, my mind racing. There must be an escape route nearby. I stumbled upon an intersection and, without hesitation, turned left. My instinct urged me on, hopeful for survival. We barreled forward, but a heavy thud just behind us seemed to vibrate through the metal hull of the ship. The predator was gaining on us. I could feel it. The growls morphed into something more sinister,
an inhuman chorus taunting us as we pushed onward. Ahead, the corridor opened up into a larger room, the engine room. The machinery loomed around us, flickering with warning lights. I hesitated briefly, recalling the frail reports of the ship's integrity, then pushed through the door just as I heard the beast's roar echo behind us. "Can we shut the door?" Margot gasped, panting, as we raced inside. "There," I pointed to massive levers against the wall, doubt gnawing at my resolve. If we can activate the emergency shutoff, it might buy us some time. "Do you think that will work?" she whispered, fear etched into her features. The growl echoed in the entryway. "We don't have time to think. Just do it." As Margot rushed to the controls, adrenaline surged through me, amplifying every heartbeat. The machinery buzzed to life, a chorus of clicking and whirring all around us. I could only hope the vibrations would attract the creature's attention, drawing it away from us. Come on," I urged, watching as she pulled down one lever. The lights dimmed even further, but the engine hummed louder beneath us.
Then a tremendous crash shook the metal walls, followed by splintering wood as the door burst open. Shadows flitted between the shifting machinery, and I felt the eyes of our pursuer fall upon us. "Margot!" I roared, racing to her side. "Finish the sequence!" With shaking hands, she pulled another lever, and the whole room trembled. The sound of rushing water mixed with alarms. "I think it's working," she yelled, but I didn't trust it. Not yet. A nightmarish form darted into our line of sight, a mass of swirling darkness and glistening scales. It lunged toward us, and instinct kicked in. I pushed Margot aside, bringing my knife forward, but my heart dropped as it dodged with an eerie grace. "Back!" I shouted, my breath ragged. I pivoted and bolted toward the control panel, ready to pull the final lever. The creature chased after, snatching at my legs as I ducked beneath its spinning maw. I squeezed the lever, and the ship began to groan under pressure. The thrumming intensified, and with a deafening roar, flames erupted from a nearby vent. "It's working! We've got to get out!" Margot shouted, and I could see the heavy presence of the beast hesitating, momentarily stunned by the blast. "Now!" I yelled, running toward the nearest exit leading to the upper decks. The exit door flew open, allowing us a brief glimpse of the chaos outside. Flickering lights, crew scrambling, and the thick, otherworldly shadows weaving through. But as we made our way, I caught sight of another shadow racing toward us. "This way!" I directed us both. We scrambled up the stairs, heartbeats in sync as we pushed through the upper deck's hatch. Finally, out into the ocean air, a heavy spray hit us in waves. I felt the crushing weight of the sea slipping away, but my heart sank as I turned back. The creature plunged upward from below, as if the ocean was rebelling against us. It snarled, an echo of ages long past, seeking vengeance. "Faster!" shouted Margot, breathless as we raced toward the life rafts. I grasped her hand tightly, the weight of our fear pushing us forward. But then came the first explosive crack, the ocean's rage striking back, dragging the ship down into darkness. I wanted to look back, but the rising water demanded my focus. We leapt into a life raft just in time as a wave crashed over us. Trenching us, the darkness loomed behind, the figure merging with the abyss as the ship sank. We floated there, hearts racing as we grappled with what had just happened. The night slipped on, silence wrapping around us. The only sounds were the gentle lap of water against the rubber sides of the raft. "I never want to go back," Margot whispered, staring out into the expanse of the ocean. I nodded, still in shock. Would it ever be safe again? I just hope. I trailed off, glancing around, searching for any sign of movement below. The question lingered, echoing like the creature's growl. Had we truly escaped?
I shivered, allowing myself to consider that the danger we faced beneath the waves wasn't entirely vanquished. The ocean still whispered secrets, the darkness still watched, and the mystery remained tantalizingly unresolved. I moved to wrap an arm around Margot as dawn began to break, the horizon lighting up with uncertainty, wondering what else lay beneath the surface, and if we had truly left it behind.